How's it going, guys? Today I'm going to walk you through the most recent version of my pedal board and kind of how I use some of these things and what I use them for and why I've picked some of them, and some things that are new to me and some things that I've been using for a very long time or have bought and sold a couple times, and we're on version 2. But before we get into that, if you like what you hear, if you like what you see, hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell, get notified when I post more stuff. Hopefully there'll be more stuff coming down the line soon. So, or if you want to see more stuff from me, you can check me out on Instagram at Hunter Strasser over there. There'll be a link to that in the description of the video. So, starting off, as you can see, this is a pretty small board in the grand scheme of things. I have a little bit of a problem, and I build new boards like every 2 months, and then I go bigger, and then I hate it, and I go back to this size. And I've gone back and forth with this size probably like 8 times over the last couple years, and it's my favorite size. This is the size that doesn't make me hate myself when I put it down in front of me at a gig or when I'm carrying it around, but I can get a lot on it and I can do a lot with this without trying to cover every sound that's ever existed. So this is where I've settled for now, and I'll probably change again later, and then I'll probably come back to something like this again. To start with, for right now, we're actually starting straight into the Argonaut. A lot of times what I'll do, at least recently, is I've been using this Jam Wahcho wah, which is super cool. Wah's kind of coming back. It's a little cool again, which is nice. Not just the like wah thing, but the like envelope filter fuzz shred kind of thing, and then obviously the funk, Corey Wong funky thing is also cool. So glad to see that the wah is coming back. But after that, and for today, the first thing we're hitting is the Argonaut by Mythos Pedals. Right now, running Collings I-35 through the board into the Tone King Imperial plug-in by Neural DX. So what we sound like, I'll turn the delay off for now. So the Argonaut is just a kind of messed up octave, the octave part of an octave fuzz, which is cool. It's this gated thing, so without it, I know it's probably more intended to be like raging fuzz tone, and we'll get to that in a second, but it's a pretty funky sound. Which is cool. So, but there's no knobs, just one button. It's on or off. So I love that. The next thing in our line is the Fairfield Circuitry -9000, I believe is what it's called. This is new to me. I'd known about Fairfield a little bit. I've used the Shallow Water some, but I went into Eastside Music Supply and said, hey, I need a fuzz that can clean up and isn't like Big Muff realm, but is more, a little bit more varied and a little bit more usable in kind of a modern mix. And they pointed me in the direction of this thing, which is awesome. So I'll show you how it is right now, and then I'll kind of show you some of the things it can do. So. That's how I start with it, at least, but it has this bias knob where if you crank it, we get into gated fuzz realm. And if you take it all the way down, it's almost more just kind of overdrive-y. That just really sounds like an overdrive. which is great. But I like it kind of somewhere in the middle here with the fuzz. I guess with the way it's oriented, it'd be at like 2 o'clock on the knob, and then the input pretty high. And what's really fun is to run the Argonaut into that. So then we get this. So those are fun. I like those. So here's volume all the way up. And I can roll it back and get a little bit more, a little varied sound out of it. So that's great. So from there, we go to the tuner, which is purely there because it would fit there. And I wanted to go straight into the Argonaut and the fuzz. I didn't want to have to hit the tuner, because sometimes I use the tuner in the buffered display always on mode, but really it fit here, so it went there, honestly. After that, we have the Lichtlärm audio, Lichtlärm, I'm probably saying that wrong, it's German, audio Aqueria, which is a super cool pedal that is also pretty new to me. That is Klon-ish. It's got kind of the basic controls, tone, gain, volume, level, clean, and that's all controlled by the normal bypass. If I bring the clean all the way down, then we're just getting the drive. But being able to bring the clean in gives you a little bit more definition out of it. Which I like. And then we also can enable this 4-band EQ and boost with the second switch. So without it, with it. It sounds great. It's cool into a clean amp to do that, or it's cool into a dirtier amp pushing a little harder. It does have a ton of range from the gain. If I dime it, get more into heavy gain territory. So it can get a little heavier if you want it to. That's not really what I need it to do, so I live around here. It has 3 different clipping modes. I want to say it's germanium, one that I don't remember, in the middle, and then silicone on the bottom, and I use the one that's in the middle. So after that, we have a staple, which is the Lightspeed. It sounds great. It's more scooped than the Aqueria is, and it plays nice with pretty much every guitar that I have, which is cool. It doesn't scoop too much for a Strat, which we'll hear in a minute. It scoops just enough for humbuckers or for the baritone or for something like that to let things lay really nicely in a more dense effects chain or a more dense mix, which is cool. So it's without it and with it. sounds great. For different things, sometimes I'll bring the gain up a little bit and use it as like a mid-gain kind of lead thing. But it sounds great for all of the uses and for just power chords. So, well, I guess I should say these two spots switch out semi-regularly. For a couple other things, this stays on most of the time. The Lightspeed kind of lives there forever. But depending on the gig, if I need something a little bit more, maybe I'll put the GTO here, or the Lucid Dreamer, or the Optimist, or kind of depending on how many options I need and what I'm looking for, I might change that depending on the gig. But these are what we're rolling with for right now. I'm going to jump around a little bit. I'm going to skip this and come back to it, because I actually have one more drive sound programmed in the HX Stomp. So for this one, I really wanted to have what I heard Andy would call it the hero tone, which I love, for the big, really heavy lead line where you need that. So I pretty much just A-B'd my J-Rocket Dude with, I don't even know what model I'm using in this. I A-B'd my J-Rocket Dude with the Horizon drive in the HX Stomp and got it to where it's pretty close. It's to where maybe by themselves you could notice a difference, but playing in a mix, playing that loud when I'm using that kind of sound, then it's probably pretty raging. So you wouldn't really be able to tell. So this is clean. And with it, and probably have a little bit of delay on for that too. So that's there if I need it, which is great. Good to have. Kind of gives me all the options I would want out of drives within one pretty small board. Jumping back to the Cali 76, this pedal is what I like to call a good button. It just always sounds good, but I don't use it as an always on. I will say that. It's currently set as an always on thing with humbuckers. I usually don't use it with humbucker guitars because I just find them to not really need it. Here's without it, and then with it. So that's doing not a lot, but it sounds good, and if you start to dig in, it's gonna start to bring things down a little bit. If I was gonna use it for the funk thing, even with humbuckers, I would set it probably more like this. Out of the Cali 76, we hit the Stomp. And in the Stomp, I'm using it to cover the kind of everything else that I would need. So my default is I leave it with a vibe sound I like and a chorus sound and the drive. If I get a gig where it's like, hey, you need a phaser, then I'll dial in a phaser. If it's a flanger, like, I'll do the other stuff and kind of use it as I need to. At the end of the video, I'll jump back and we'll hear the Stomp DI, because I do use it that way sometimes. Just using that for amps instead of a real amp or the Tone King stuff for amps. So I have the Dude, which we've heard already, and then I have an analog chorus sound. For that one, and for all the sounds I use in this, I did a very similar thing that I did with the Dude. I took the Walrus Juliana, kind of dialed in the sound I liked, and then tried to get it as close to that as I could. So a little bit of copying the really good things that I like a lot and just getting it into a smaller box, which works. It's cool. It gets the job done for me. The Univibe sound, I was trying to go for the sound of my JHS Artificial Blonde, the Madison Cunningham pedal. So it sounds like this. Does the thing, it does its job, sounds great. So one kind of weird thing that I'm doing here is I'm actually running the timeline in the effects loop of the HX Stomp. That's largely so that if I run amps in the Stomp, I can decide where I want to put delay, whether I want it after or before, kind of depending on what I'm doing and how I'm using it, or if I just want to be able to mess with sounds and do something weird with delay within the Stomp and run an effect after it. It makes it easy. So the timeline is a staple. I have sold this pedal before and then rebought it. I had it originally for probably 6 or 7 years, and it was on every board, and then I got tired of it and wanted to change and thought a change would fix my problems, and it sure didn't. And so we're back with the blackout version, which is pretty sick. And I'm not doing anything revolutionary with it. Short to long delays. It's great. It always works. It can cover all the weird delay sounds you could want, which I'm not going to run through today because everybody's heard them. But it's great. It's still great, however many, 10 probably years after it came out. So out of that, again, that's in the effects loop of the Stomp. And out of the Stomp, we go into the Strymon Flint, V1, I guess. There's a V2 now, which the reverb you've been hearing the whole time is from that. This is about how I just normally set it. I like the 80s setting the most, probably. Nothing crazy, just enough reverb to not make it feel super stale. I find myself liking big reverbs less and less now. Just they tend to get messy and mess with the transient and not make what I'm trying to play as clear as I want it to be. So I like this because it doesn't get in the way. But the other algorithms sound great. I use the trem a lot. And then the favorite switch is basically just like a super washed out reverb for when I do need to do that thing. So here's the normal one, and here's the big one. One with a pretty big delay. So here is the amp sim that I use in the Stomp. I'm right now using the Princeton model. I think it sounds great. It sounds very Fendery. And one of the David Hislop IRs, which are also great. Everything else is the same as the other rig, so the only thing I tend to notice with this is it doesn't ever start to kind of self-compress at the amp stage. So I have to be a little bit more careful with drives hitting that and not just continuing to raise the volume and then hitting the stuff after it too hard. Yeah, so let's hear that with a couple different things and then move on. Yeah, that's my board. One thing that I was going to mention is I don't currently have a volume pedal on there. If I really need one, I'll put one on the ground before the board. But for a long time, I would keep a volume pedal between drives and then the rest of the board. And I feel like it was kind of a crutch. I ended up just riding it the whole time, which isn't a bad thing, but I'm trying to get more used to just riding the guitar volume and then properly gain staging that stuff in the amp and then just being able to control things from there. So if you like this, hit the subscribe button, check me out on Instagram at HunterStrasser, and keep an eye out for more content to come. Thanks.